corporate life cycle. Now, in corporate life cycle, we can categorize a business based on where they are in their life cycle. Parang ano yan, parang tao. You get born, you grow up to a toddler, to an adolescent, to an adult, then you mature, and then you perish. But some companies, they are innovative enough, such a way that when they mature, they evolve, they make adjustments, they diversify, they prolong their life, sometimes more longer than their founders. So in our illustration, we have startups, growth companies. Growth companies are startups that have reached a level of scale wherein they can now begin to roll out and aggressively monetize their established business model. A mature company is more of a cash cow wherein they don't innovate as much, or they don't have to innovate as much. Their business have reached a stable level, or their market share has reached a big enough level so that they can focus on retaining and maintaining their profitable operations. Companies in decline are companies wherein they find it difficult to remain relevant given the current environment, and some of which have decided to liquidate and sell off and sunset their operations. Now, we can distinguish these four types of companies based on corporate life cycle vis-a-vis the investment, financing, and dividend decisions. A startup, you would expect them to have a lot of investments at the start, especially if their idea turns out to have feasibility. You expect them to invest heavy and often. For growth companies, the investment is now focused more on scale and maximization. So they have established that a particular idea could be profitable, and they begin to expand their reach so that they can focus on reaching more of their customers and getting more share in the market. Mature companies are focused on investments that preserve their market positions. They make a defensive strategic action or activity. Either they acquire companies when they see that it's threatening in their position, or strengthening their market standing. Now, for declining companies, most of the investment decision becomes now on the reverse side. Rather than cash focusing on outflows, they're focusing on inflows, trying to liquidate and divest and generate returns, and converting their assets into cash so that they can return these amounts easily. Over to the financing decision. When it comes to a startup, they are purely funded by equity or seed money, seed capital. A lot of the typical debt financing providers are not yet, they don't have the appetite yet to lend money for these startups until such time as they reach a scalable level, once they become a growth company. And once a company reaches the growth levels, they begin to attract the attention of debt financing providers such as banks. And banks will begin entertaining credit loan applications from these growth companies because they see potential for further expansion. On the other hand, the growth companies will need debt financing in order to scale up further to fund their expansion. Companies can live off equity, okay, especially if it's a profitable one. However, if you want to scale faster, then you have to start entertaining debt financing. Mature companies, they have established their credit worthiness, so they begin to use more and more debt financing to allow to support and preserve their business, because they have adequate cash inflows to cover for debt, uh, interest, and principal payments. Most declining companies either have been too reliant on debt financing to a point they could no longer support their operations, hence they decide to liquidate, or they've begun uh, pruning their debt borrowing so that whatever is left in their business can be returned to the shareholders. For dividends, of course, the startup, you expect them not to declare dividends at all, because they don't have profits yet. Very few startups have been fortunate to earn profits in the first years of their operations. Uber, until now, hasn't turned in a profit. So they're still in investment mode. Now, most growth companies begin to return profits or generate profits rather. However, rather than declaring them as dividends, they actively decide to reinvest it because it's part of their growth approach. Mature companies now begin to see excess funds, and since they don't have much um, incremental value to generate out of existing projects, might as well return those funds to shareholders through dividends. Finally, some funds, excess funds generated by declining companies, are used to pay down existing debt, and whatever is left is returned to equity holders as either liquidity dividends or share buybacks and retirement.